The night of November 19, 2022 was meant to be a celebration. The city of Colorado Springs shimmered under a cold, clear sky, its streets alive with the energy of a Saturday night. For many, it was just another evening. But for the LGBTQ+ community and their allies, it was a night to come together, to find joy and belonging in a world that too often felt unwelcoming. Inside Club Q, laughter mingled with the thumping bass of dance music. The air was electric, filled with anticipation and the freedom to be oneself. Friends greeted each other with hugs, couples held hands without fear, and strangers became family on the dance floor. The club pulsed with life, a kaleidoscope of color and sound, where every beat of the music seemed to echo the heartbeat of a resilient community. This club in Colorado Springs was more than a nightclub. It was a sanctuary. For years, Club Q had stood as a safe haven, a place where people could shed the weight of judgment and simply exist as they were. It was a refuge from the outside world, a place where acceptance was not just a word, but a lived reality. A place where people, gay, straight, transgender, could gather without fear. Here, identities were celebrated, not hidden. The walls of Club Q had witnessed countless stories of love, friendship, and self-discovery. It was a space where the marginalized found their voices, and where the community could come together in solidarity and pride. Club Q was a beacon of safety in a city not always welcoming to the LGBTQ+ community. In a region where acceptance could not always be taken for granted, the club stood as a symbol of hope and resilience. It was a place where people could dance, laugh, and love openly, without the shadow of prejudice looming over them. That Saturday evening was special, hosting a drag show and honoring the Transgender Day of Remembrance. The event was more than entertainment. It was a tribute to those lost to violence and hate, a reminder of the struggles faced by transgender individuals, and a celebration of their courage and existence. The performers dazzled the crowd, their artistry a testament to the power of self-expression. The atmosphere was vibrant, a testament to resilience. Laughter and applause filled the room, and for a few precious hours, the worries of the outside world faded away. People danced, sang, and celebrated life, united by a shared sense of belonging and the knowledge that, here, they were safe. For many, Club Q was more than a weekend destination. It was a lifeline. It was the place where they first felt seen, where they found chosen family, and where they could express themselves without fear of judgment. The club's staff knew regulars by name, and newcomers were welcomed with open arms. It was a tapestry of stories, woven together by the shared desire for acceptance and joy. Suddenly, just before midnight, that sanctuary was violated. In an instant, the music was cut short, replaced by a jarring, incomprehensible noise. Confusion swept through the crowd as the unthinkable unfolded. What began as a night of celebration was shattered by violence. A figure armed with an AR-15-style rifle entered. The presence of the weapon was unmistakable, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth and joy that had filled the room moments before. The attacker moved with chilling intent, eyes scanning the crowd, finger on the trigger. Music and laughter were replaced by gunfire. The sound was deafening, echoing off the walls and drowning out screams of terror. In seconds, the club was transformed from a place of joy to a scene of chaos and fear. People dove for cover, instinctively seeking safety wherever they could find it. Chaos erupted as patrons scrambled for cover. Tables were overturned, glasses shattered, and the dance floor, once a place of freedom, became a battleground. Some froze in shock, others ran for exits, and a few brave souls rushed to help those who had fallen. The attack was swift and targeted, shattering the promise of safety. In mere moments, the sanctuary that had taken years to build was reduced to chaos and heartbreak. The echoes of gunfire lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of the violence that had invaded this sacred space. The shooter moved methodically, firing into the crowd. Each shot was an assault not just on individuals, but on the very idea of community and acceptance. The attack was calculated, designed to inflict maximum harm and terror, yet the sense of community did not break. In the face of unimaginable horror, people reached for one another, offering comfort, protection, and hope. Strangers became allies, united by the instinct to survive and to help those around them. Even in terror, courage emerged. Some patrons risked their lives to shield friends and loved ones, while others confronted the attacker, determined to stop the violence. Their bravery in those desperate moments would save countless lives and inspire a community to heal. Some fled, others fought back. The chaos was punctuated by acts of heroism, people tackling the shooter, disarming him, and refusing to let hate win. In the darkest of moments, the light of human resilience shone through. First responders arrived within minutes, their presence bringing a measure of order to the chaos. Paramedics tended to the wounded, police secured the scene, and the community outside the club waited anxiously for news of their loved ones. The tragedy reverberated far beyond the club's walls, touching the hearts of people across the city and the nation. The night that began in celebration became a desperate battle for survival. In the days that followed, grief and shock would give way to mourning and remembrance. But even as the community grappled with loss, the spirit of Club Q endured, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of chosen family. When the gunfire ceased, the toll was clear. 5 people were dead, 17 wounded. Each victim was a cherished community member. Daniel Aston, 28, a transgender man and beloved bartender, known for his infectious energy. Kelly Loving, 40, a kind transgender woman visiting from out of town. Derrick Rump, 38, a bartender with a sharp wit and deep loyalty. Ashley Paugh, 35, a mother and ally, there to support friends. Raymond Vance, 22, visiting an LGBTQ+ club for the first time. These individuals were not statistics, they were people with dreams and families. Their loss leaves an unfillable void. They were sons, daughters, sisters, and friends. We must remember their names and who they were. Their lives were cut short by an act of pure hatred. Their memory calls us to action. Anderson Lee Aldrich, 22, was responsible for this horrific act. Tackled by heroic patrons, including Richard Fierro, a U.S. Army veteran, they prevented further loss. This bravery saved countless lives. Disturbingly, Aldrich had a history with law enforcement. In June 2021, he was arrested after threatening his mother with a bomb. Despite this, charges were dropped and records sealed. The system ignored clear warning signs. Colorado's red flag law, designed to remove firearms from threats, was not used. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office resisted enforcing this law. This failure created a path to tragedy. A violent individual legally purchased firearms. The warning signs were disregarded. The legal system failed to protect the community. 5 people paid the ultimate price. Institutional failures left the community vulnerable. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the legal system began its slow, methodical process to hold Anderson Lee Aldrich accountable for the devastation wrought at Club Q. The courthouse, once a symbol of impartial justice, now became the stage for a community's grief and a nation's reckoning. The halls echoed with the footsteps of attorneys, victims' families, and reporters, all seeking answers and closure. The weight of the case was palpable, as the world watched to see if justice would truly be served. In June 2023, after months of legal maneuvering and emotional testimony, Aldrich stood before the court and pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder and hate crime charges. The plea was a somber acknowledgement of the pain inflicted, and it spared the survivors and families the ordeal of a lengthy trial. News outlets across the country reported on the proceedings, highlighting the significance of the hate crime charges and the broader implications for LGBTQ+ rights and protections. The judge, after listening to heart-wrenching victim impact statements and reviewing the evidence, delivered a sentence that reflected the gravity of the crimes. Aldrich was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that the perpetrator would never walk free, and sorrow for the lives forever changed. The sentence was meant to send a clear message. Hate-fueled violence would not be tolerated, and those responsible would face the full force of the law. During the proceedings, Aldrich's attorneys made headlines by asserting that their client identified as non-binary. This claim was met with skepticism by many, including members of the LGBTQ+ community and legal experts, who saw it as a possible attempt to deflect or mitigate the hate crime charges. The debate over Aldrich's identity added another layer of complexity to an already emotionally charged case, sparking conversations about gender identity, legal strategy, and the meaning of justice. But the legal reckoning did not end at the state level. The federal justice system soon launched its own investigation, determined to address the broader civil rights violations and the national impact of the attack. Federal prosecutors, working alongside the Department of Justice, prepared a separate case that would further scrutinize Aldrich's actions and motivations. In January 2024, Aldrich once again appeared in court, this time at the federal level. Facing a new set of charges, including additional hate crimes and civil rights violations, Aldrich pleaded guilty. The federal plea was another milestone in the pursuit of justice, reinforcing the message that crimes motivated by hate would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, both locally and nationally. The federal judge handed down another life sentence, ensuring that Aldrich would spend the rest of their life behind bars. The additional sentence underscored the seriousness with which the federal government viewed the attack, and it provided a measure of closure for those who felt that one sentence was not enough to account for the magnitude of the crime. The federal charges officially labeled the massacre as a targeted act of hate against the LGBTQ+ community. This designation was more than symbolic. It was a recognition of the deep wounds inflicted not just on the victims and their families, but on an entire community that has long faced discrimination and violence. Outside the courthouse, protesters and advocates gathered, waving rainbow flags and demanding justice, their voices echoing the need for change. For survivors and the families of those lost, the legal proceedings were only one part of the journey toward healing. Many sought accountability not just from Aldrich, but from the institutions and systems that had failed to prevent the tragedy. Press conferences and vigils became spaces for collective mourning, solidarity, and calls for reform. The community's resilience was on full display, as people came together to support one another and demand answers. In the wake of the attack, lawsuits were filed against the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, alleging negligence in their handling of prior warnings and red flags related to Aldrich. Plaintiffs argued that more could have been done to prevent the tragedy, and that law enforcement had a responsibility to act on information that might have saved lives. The legal battle against the sheriff's office became a focal point for discussions about accountability, public safety, and the responsibilities of those sworn to protect the community. These lawsuits and court cases also reignited fierce debates over gun control and public policy. Activists and lawmakers clashed over proposed reforms, with some calling for stricter regulations and others defending gun rights. The tragedy at Club Q became a rallying cry for those demanding change, while opponents warned against overreach. The courtroom battles spilled into the public square, highlighting the deep political divisions that continue to shape the nation's response to gun violence. Meanwhile, Club Q's owners faced their own legal challenges. Questions were raised about the adequacy of security measures at the nightclub and whether more could have been done to protect patrons. Lawsuits and insurance claims added to the burden faced by the club's management, who were already grappling with the emotional and financial fallout of the attack. The case forced a broader conversation about safety in public spaces, especially for marginalized communities. As the legal process unfolded, a judge reviewed the various claims and motions. Some lawsuits were dismissed, deemed insufficient under the law, while others were allowed to proceed, keeping the hope for accountability alive. The decisions were closely watched by the public and the media, as each ruling carried implications for future cases and for the broader quest for justice. This ongoing reckoning in the courts is about more than just one individual or one crime. It is a search for accountability, healing, and change, a collective effort to ensure that the tragedy at Club Q is never forgotten, and that the lessons learned lead to a safer, more just future for all. The Club Q massacre was not just a tragedy, it was a violent manifestation of the rising tide of anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric that has swept across the country in recent years. On that night, a place that had long served as a sanctuary for the LGBTQ+ community was shattered by hate, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and fear. The attack sent shockwaves far beyond Springs, reminding us all of the real and present dangers faced by LGBTQ+ people every day. Political figures and media outlets have increasingly targeted the LGBTQ+ community with hostile language, fueling a climate of suspicion and intolerance. From inflammatory speeches on the campaign trail to sensationalist headlines and social media posts, the words of those in power have emboldened extremists and made it easier for hate to take root. These messages, repeated over and over, have a profound impact, not just on public opinion, but on the safety and well-being of real people. This climate of hostility creates a dangerous environment where violence can flourish. For many LGBTQ+ individuals, the fear is constant. Walking down the street, entering a bar, or simply expressing themselves can feel like acts of courage. The sense of safety that spaces like Club Q once provided has been eroded, replaced by anxiety and vigilance. The threat is not abstract, It is felt in daily life, in every sideways glance and every hateful word. The attack on Club Q was a stark reminder that words have consequences. When hate is normalized in public discourse, it can inspire real-world violence. The pain inflicted that night was not just the result of one person's actions, but the culmination of a culture that too often tolerates or even encourages bigotry. The headlines that followed were filled with grief, but also with questions about how we got here, and what must change. In the aftermath, media coverage was criticized for misgendering victims and failing to honor their identities. For the loved ones left behind, this added another layer of pain to an already unbearable loss. The way we talk about victims matters. It shapes how they are remembered and how their stories are told. Accurate, respectful reporting is not just a matter of professionalism, it is a matter of dignity and humanity. This compounded the grief of loved ones who were already struggling to process the horror of what had happened. In moments of tragedy, the community came together to mourn, to comfort one another, and to find strength in shared sorrow. Vigils became spaces not only for remembrance but for healing, a chance to honor those lost and to reaffirm the bonds that hold the community together. Despite the pain and the fear, the response from the LGBTQ+ community and its allies was one of remarkable resilience. People refused to let hate define them or their future. Instead, they stood together in solidarity, showing the world that love and unity are stronger than violence and division. The outpouring of support was a testament to the enduring spirit of a community that has faced adversity before and will continue to rise above it. Vigils were held across the country, funds were raised to support survivors and victims' families, and messages of hope and solidarity poured in from around the world. The community refused to be silenced or pushed back into the shadows. Instead, they used their grief as fuel for action, channeling their pain into a renewed commitment to justice and equality. In the wake of the tragedy, LGBTQ+ advocates became even more vocal in their calls for change. They demanded not only greater protections for LGBTQ+ people, but also urgent action on gun safety and mental health. Rallies and marches brought together people from all walks of life, united by a shared determination to create a safer, more inclusive world. The fight for LGBTQ+ rights and for common-sense gun laws became intertwined, as activists recognized that true safety requires both acceptance and action. The story of Club Q is ultimately one of survival and defiance. Survivors and allies have spoken out, sharing their stories and demanding that the world pay attention. Their courage in the face of unimaginable loss is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can endure. Pride parades and community gatherings have become acts of resistance, celebrations of life and love in defiance of hate. Though the physical location of Club Q is now closed, its spirit lives on in the hearts of those who called it home. The memories made within its walls, the friendships forged, and the love shared cannot be erased by violence. The rainbow lights that now illuminate the cityscape are a symbol of resilience, a promise that the fight for equality will continue. The LGBTQ+ community continues to fight for a world without fear, a world where everyone can live authentically and safely, without the threat of violence or discrimination. Activists and allies are working tirelessly to change laws, shift attitudes, and build a future where hate has no place. Their determination is unwavering, fueled by the memory of those lost and the hope for a better tomorrow. We must honor the memory of the victims by continuing their fight, by standing up to hate, by demanding justice, and by building communities where everyone is valued and protected. Their names must never be forgotten, and their stories must inspire us to action. Their lives are a call to action, a reminder that the struggle for equality is far from over, and that each of us has a role to play in creating a world where love triumphs over hate.